Hello and welcome to the Moviescramble podcast. I am joined today by my ever reliable, very well lit co-star sitting there in her nice lilac top. I'm just painting a mental image for all you people who are sitting there thinking, I wonder what the hosts wear on top and bottom, because you just never know, do you? So I have introduced her without actually saying her name at all, and you've heard her laughing. I mean, you don't hear much laughter in the Moviescramble podcast, so this is a wee treat for you as well. Mary, how the hell are you?
I am really good. Obviously resplendent in lilac. I'd just like to point out that my t-shirt doesn't just say old, it says old-fashioned, because that's a favourite beverage of mine. But yeah, really good. Full of film this week. It's been a very film-heavy week, so looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, as Mary has indicated, we are talking about films, not film this week. We are going to be discussing the summer 2024 movie season, basically taking a look back at the films that have come out over the period and discussing what we thought of the quality of them, who were the winners and losers and surprises, and we'll finish off later on with just a wee look forward to what's coming out over the next couple of months, what's making us excited and what we're kind of looking forward to in the run up towards the dreaded C word, which in this case is Christmas, which is always a big season with regards to movies and entertainment and stuff. So, summer 2024, the way that we are categorising it is the same that's categorised by a number of other people, including the likes of Box Office Mojo. We are running from the start of May to basically the start of September. So there were a number of films that came out prior to the start of May. I think it's in America, it's basically around two holidays. I think it's Memorial Day and Labor Day that they basically say is the sort of summer season, and it varies depending on if there's a big blockbuster coming out at the very start of the window. I remember a couple of years ago it was one of the Avengers films was coming out, and it was just before, it was like a couple of days before the holiday weekend, and they included that just because.
Oh, that was nice of them.
Kind of, yeah, giving a wee bit of help to a struggling film, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there will be certain films that we won't be talking about. For instance, we will not be talking about the new Beetlejuice film, and we won't be talking about the new Joker film either, because they came out after the window ended. But in contrast to that, there is there's actually a top 100 films of the summer season, which kind of shows you how many bloody films get released at any time in the States and internationally. There will be mention of some films that came out before me, but they were still in cinemas and actually had an impact during the summer season. And some of these will show that films underperformed in a certain way. There's a couple of wee surprises in there, one of which Mary will not like whatsoever. I can guarantee it, based on the numbers alone, not on the quality of the films. But let's have a wee start. Now, summer 2024 was a reasonably big time at the box office. There was, as I say, a number of films. There was well over 100 films out there. There were various predictions and guesses. Now, a lot of the time it does come down to guesswork because there's always surprises about what does well and what doesn't do well. But overall, the box office was down for the year compared to last year. Now, obviously, last year was a biggie with the whole Barbenheimer thing, but the way that it panned out, just purely in terms of box offices, it was down several billion. Well, not several billion. It was down maybe $500 million in terms of ticket receipts at the box office. Last year was just over 4 billion. It's 4.09, and this year there was $3.6 billion raised in ticket sales for what's regarded as the summer movies. Now, there's always a number of factors to do with this. This year is the summer after the two big strikes in terms of the writers and the actors.
Yes, Green Lantern Guild. Yeah.
Yep, they were both last year, which put a number of films that were shit on the slate back a year, which was not expected because obviously films are set up 2-3 years in advance and the dates are actually announced at the same time when they actually go into production or they get the big fanfare, you know, coming in 2026, that kind of idea. You get that all the time. Now, that has had an effect, but maybe not $500 million worth of an effect, which is quite interesting. So, Mary, just in sort of general terms, what was your overall impression of the fair that was the summer movies of 2024?
Do you know what's funny? I sat and looked at a list yesterday, and I was also looking at like gross worldwide takings and things like that as well, just to kind of see where things were stacking up. The gap between your top 2 films of the summer and the rest is enormous. So that in itself speaks volumes.
Yep.
I felt like it was a wee bit underwhelming this year, and I feel like the films that were supposed to set the box office on fire, you know, the likes of The Fall Guy and things like that, just sort of disappeared without a trace. Now, of course, the biggies have been Inside Out 2, which has a $1.675 billion gross worldwide, and Deadpool versus Wolverine, which is $1.3 billion. So Disney, Marvel must be, you know, absolutely rubbing their hands with glee because they have trounced everything else. But they really were the 2 big films. It's interesting because one's obviously more sort of family orientated, one's definitely more sort of adult. So it kind of ticks all the boxes from that sense. But overall, looking at what has come out, blockbuster wise, it's been very underwhelming for me.
Yeah, that's completely true. If we, like you say, we go through a few numbers here. Inside Out 2 was obviously the biggie. Now, that was regarded as being something that was expected to fail more than anything else, not based on the fact that Inside Out was such a big hit, but based on the fact that Pixar was not doing the business. They have had a number of films which has been regarded as being okay. They didn't set the box office on fire in the way that they would do 10, 15 years ago. Every single film that came out hit to number 1, being one of the biggest films of the year. It hasn't been happening for them. And the way that the company has reacted is that they are doing things like Inside Out 2, they're doing a new Toy Story film. They've got like a severe case of sequelitis here, so they're retreading old ground in order to basically make money, which was not what Pixar was originally about. It was complex storytelling that could bring in your sort of 4-quadrant audience and still have this product that everyone can enjoy and will still sell lunchboxes and T-shirts and you know, plushy toys, all this kind of thing. So it was a bit of a surprise that hit so well. One of the reasons why they think it did hit so well was a lot of the kids who saw Inside Out, which was about the best part of about a decade ago, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. They are now teens or in their 20s, and there's that sort of nostalgia factor for them going to see that, and they're maybe taking their own kids, or if you live in Alabama, their grandkids. Here's me trying to alienate our American audience. Well done, you know, we've got so many to spare that we can do it with the whole nation.
Yeah, we're making Florida jokes, we're making Alabama jokes, we're doing it all. I mean, part of me did wonder if Inside Out 2 did so well because we're all anxious as fuck. And obviously anxiety is such a big character in that. And I thought maybe after so many years of being sort of relegated to indoors or told not to socialize with people and all the rest of it, maybe we're all just a lot more anxious as people. So I thought maybe that's why it did quite well. But you're right, actually, I never even thought about that. The first one came out so long ago that timing wise, it's, you know, Riley, who obviously is the main character, has aged exactly as her audience has. So that actually is quite a neat fit. Yeah,
and it's one of these films basically because of Disney Plus that it's never too far away from the sort of public consciousness. It's one of these films that's splashed up in your main page on your Disney Plus account at all times because it's always there, and it's held up as being this fantastic film because of the way that it actually talked about emotions in a quite mature way, and it was able to get across points to children about why you're feeling the way you're feeling. All right. So yes, it was regarded as being a breakthrough film at the time and important. So it shouldn't really have been a surprise. But it's with all of these films, you can never tell if they are going to pull in an audience, and there will be a few examples of films that you thought would have pulled in an audience, but just have not. So, like I said, Inside Out 2, the absolute biggie. Deadpool Wolverine making it a 1-2 for Disney, which almost is a bit of a cheat because obviously Disney is now, it's Disney, the Disney imprint itself. It's Marvel, it's Star Wars, it's Pixar.
It's Fox, it's everything.
It's Fox, yeah. So they've got so many sort of tentacles to the organization that it's more straightforward to them to have bigger films. Now, Deadpool Wolverine was the only Marvel film this year, and it's almost still regarded. I know Fox is fully part of the whole Disney
Deadpool's
thing
a Disney
now.
princess.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
So it's Wolverine is now part of the MCU, and boy, did it push that point during the film. You know, there was maybe a bit. If you put it this way, see if you had a drink every time that they mentioned the MCU.
You'd be absolutely
you would be hammered. Yeah, absolutely. So it's no longer regarded as MCU adjacent. It's like fully integrated into it, and it was the only Marvel movie this year. Still relied a wee bit on the fact that there was TV shows and stuff like that were out there and had been, because it was obviously the time variant authority and things like that were involved in it. So if you wanted to, you could sort of have dug into it a wee bit more, done your homework. It wasn't completely necessary in this case because the film was just all over the place in terms of storytelling. There wasn't all that much of a story, to be perfectly honest.
No, and they did sort of take the piss out of the fact that it's like, well, if you haven't seen episode 3 of season 2 of this, then you'll not understand it. So they were very sort of aware of that. I do think, though, that Deadpool really merited from a very, very heavy PR campaign. I mean, every time you turned on the TV, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds were on some sort of TV show promoting it. They were doing TikTok interviews, they were doing Instagram stuff, they were all over television. And I mean, that will have helped because they are two people who have mass appeal in terms of whenever they are interviewed, they're funny, they play off each other. They even did the Amelia de Moldenberg chicken chop date and stuff like that as well. And I do think they were going hard in terms of PR. I mean, they showed up at the end of the Olympics, for God's sake, and everything. And, really just, not the Olympics, sorry, the Euros. Euros.
Yep.
They showed up at the end of the year as well, and just they were really going for it, and fair enough, because actually it was a very Tom Cruise approach. It was go hard to promote your film, and obviously they've reaped the benefits of that. But it just, I do think it helped the fact that they were sort of everywhere.
Yeah, the film was obviously going to be big, but the numbers really depended on how well it was pushed and how well it was received. And like you say, they made the most of it. They did a grand tour of Europe, North, South America, and through to the East and all that as well. They were, like you say, they were everywhere. It was very difficult to avoid them. And the way that they're such strong personalities, these two, that they do good interview. It wasn't just the same stuff all the time. They basically hijacked every interview they were in for their own ends, and just a lot of the time they didn't even talk about the film. It was just the presence of them basically ripping the piss out of each other, which actually made for the sort of highlight moment, the wee sort of TikTok moment, if you like. So yeah, that was massively important to the success of that film. And they know that anyway, because, there is a lot of, no matter what people say, there is superhero fatigue. The numbers bear it out. These films are not doing as well as they were previously, like 5-6 years ago. And we've talked about it. There's a variety of reasons for it. It's not just people are fed up seeing it. There is a definite dip in the quality of some of these films as well. And it's obviously, they're still massive big films and everything, but they don't have the same appeal. There's too many of them as well for a start. And I think obviously Marvel have realised that by just having one film this year, and they've reaped the rewards for that, because having one tentpole release during the summer, you concentrate all of your marketing and everything onto that as well. So yeah, it was interesting to see, because there was doubts when it got released how well it was going to do. So,
well, this is the thing. I think it's one of these films where it really could have gone either way, because Deadpool 2 wasn't massively well received. It was kind of seen as weaker to the first Deadpool. It was seen as sort of more of the same. And to be quite honest with you, given the way, not just superhero films, but films in general have been going, you can't go all in on Red or Black anymore, because there's just too many variables that can absolutely take out a film overnight.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, and it can be something that comes from totally from left field. It's just you've not thought about, and it can be one single news report, one person making a complaint about a film, or whatever,
or an actor or a director. Because think about what stuck in my head was West Side Story. Billed to be this massive, big Spielberg remake, etc., and all of a sudden Ansel Elgort has allegations against him, and that film disappears without a trace.
Yep. Oh yes, it can be very interesting. Another good example of that's The Flash from last year. We didn't even know for a long time whether we'd actually see that film based on all the allegations and the bad behaviour of its main star. So yes, it can make or break a film, and executives must be tearing their hair out at times when they've got something, this is going to be great, we've put all this money in, we've spent the budget plus another half on promoting it. Only for its actor to be dipping his wang somewhere it shouldn't have been in the first place, so.
I know, this just comes back to my previous point that I've made in loads of podcasts. Could everyone just stop being rapists? That would be great. And then we could actually get some cinema that we like.
Yeah. So in number 3 in the box office was Despicable Me 4. Now, I don't need to tell you the background to this franchise at all, obviously, but interestingly enough, every year that a Despicable Me film has come up against a Disney Pixar film or whatever, it's always won. It's always been the film that's won. So it was predicted to be the biggest film of the summer by a number of people. A number of critics were saying, well, it's going to be the biggest one, because just based on historical fact and the fact that these films don't differ very much. Now, I've seen Despicable Me 4. I can hardly remember anything about it, to be perfectly honest, apart from the Minions doing Minions stuff in it, It was fairly formulaic, but it gets bums on seats. Kids love that sort of thing. And that's brilliant. That's exactly what you're wanting. But the difference between that and Inside was nearly $300 million, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. So the rest of the top 10 as it stands is number 4, Twisters, 5, Bad Boys Ride or Die, 6, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, 7, A Quiet Place Day 1, 8, It Ends With Us, which is an interesting one, 9 was If, and 10 was The Fall Guy. Now, like you pointed out earlier, the difference between the number 1 film, $650 million domestically in the US, and the number 10 film, The Fall Guy, is 92 million.
Jesus.
And Inside Out 2 was released a month after The Fall Guy as well. So there's that to take into consideration. So we've talked about the top 3. So the rest of the top 10 are films of varying degrees and varying quality. Now, the likes of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is one of these franchises that does run about this. The numbers it's doing around about 170 million. That's fine. That's expected. It's of a certain standard, a certain quality.
I don't feel like that was promoted a lot, which is interesting, because I feel like some of those films that you mentioned there, I'm like, you can see where they've spent their marketing budget. Other ones, I'm like, they appeared in cinemas and disappeared before I was actually cognizant that they were a thing.
Yeah. Out of all of the top 10, It Ends With Us is the one that surprised me the most, to be perfectly honest, because
it's much nasty drama around that as well.
I know. It's not a blockbuster film, if you like. I know it's based on a book, so therefore there's that kind of built-in audience for it. But it was a wee bit surprised, but it was a film I think benefited from the fact that it was in the news quite a lot, whether it was bad or good. The news stories about it seemed to intrigue people, and it hung about for quite a while, and people went to see it, obviously. If it was in the top 10 and it was above things like Fall Guy as well. Now, what do you think? Do you think that's just a wee bit of an anomaly just based on the controversy around it, or was it something else?
One, don't read Colleen Hoover books. She glamorizes domestic abuse. Please don't give that person money. Second of all, yeah, there was so much, the director was sort of cast aside by Blake Lively. Blake Lively used a film about domestic abuse to promote her hair care and cocktail range when people have pointed out that alcohol is heavily associated with domestic abuse. But what I actually think really pushed that is not the sort of floral theme that she was going for in all of her PR appearances, but I think the fact that Ryan Reynolds jumped in because his Deadpool Wolverine sort of PR trail had calmed down, and I think he sort of jumped in and showed up at things and talked about how amazing his wife was and how proud he was at this project. And I actually think that got some people along, maybe sort of women sort of taking their husbands along for a date night, as it were, or their partners to go, look, Ryan Reynolds has promoted this as well. I think that's what's got it over the line, but I'm surprised and disgusted because, quite frankly, the whole thing just leaves a really bad taste, because I just think those books they're just not good portrayals of women in those situations, and also the sort of, as I say, the nasty drama surrounding this as well. Just very, very odd. I'm really surprised that's broken the top 10, quite frankly.
You usually get maybe one or two surprises that do really well in the summer movies, and it is usually something that courts a wee bit of controversy for whatever reason. Obviously, in this case, it's a surprise in the fact that it's quite a sort of heavy subject matter. It's not the kind of thing that you would expect to do well when the rest of the films that are getting shown at a cinema are more family orientated or blockbusters or whatever. But it could have worked because of that as well, the sort of counter programming aspect of it, the fact that it's up against these things, so therefore it's something that may attract an adult audience, and it's that nice Blake Lively who hangs about with Ryan Reynolds as well. So yeah, there could be that, but like you say, obviously the author is successful, if controversial, but that all plays into it as well. I was just
it's a bit like Dan Brown books, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
not good books, but very, very controversial. Obviously, because there's a Catholic conspiracy theory there, and obviously made into films with although having said that, they had a much bigger name. Obviously, they had Tom Hanks in the Da Vinci Code film, but that kind of airport novel.
Yeah. It's that kind of thing. It's mass appeal, if you like, for whatever reason. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I like reading these books. They don't take it. It's the same idea as just having something on the TV in the background as well. It's comfort. It's something that you don't need to particularly think about an awful lot, which is obviously putting the authors down as well, the same way that you put down directors. But if you don't actually pay attention to their film because you're not taking anything.
Yeah, I get that though. Every so often you need an airport novel to make up for the fact that you've maybe just come out of like a Dostoevsky or something, and you need something to sort of balance what you've just read. Yeah. So I do get that. I'm just very surprised. I say the whole thing just came across nasty, and actually not only just the campaign for that film, but then it started filtering out all these videos of times where Blake Lively had been really rude and horrible to interviewers and things like that as well. So there was a proper campaign against her as a person. So that's why I'm just surprised that's done as well as it has.
Okay, so we've talked about the top 10. I want to touch on films that were out during the period but kind of underperformed, didn't do as well as was expected. I'm not talking about the indie films here, the sort of smaller films. We'll get on to some of those afterwards in a sort of future discussion, but there were big films, and some, like for instance, the number 9 film, If Imaginary Friends, was expected to be a big film. It was released early. It was released in May, so therefore there wasn't really much competition with regards to some of the other summer films like Despicable Me and Inside Out 2, but yet it underperformed. You've got the Garfield movie, which has obviously name IP, whether that is actually still a thing with regards to Garfield for kids. I think it probably is, because it was still TV shows and stuff like that that they worked for a long time. Yeah.
I feel, and maybe the parents might even have nostalgia for the character as well. So I feel like that's still a thing, yeah. Yeah,
and you've got, which Chris was it that did the voice for it this time?
Pratt.
Yes, correct. Thank you. I'd forgotten. I was trying to picture all of the Chris's lined up, which is a bit of a hobby,
A special shout out to Simmy, because Simmy absolutely loves Chris Pratt.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was one of the bigger underperformers. That still hit the top 10, but Garfield is at number 11. But then when you go down the list there, you've got the Mad Max film, Furiosa, was down at number 14. The Kevin Costner Horizon American Saga, that was down at number 18. It only took $30 million in the box office, which
Poor Kev.
put the brakes on the second part of the film, which was supposed to be out in August. So that's been completely removed from the schedule now. It's completed. It's like a done deal, you know. So I think they're waiting for people to actually see the first film on home formats before issuing the second one and trying to build up interest that way. But you had films like Fly Me to the Moon. You had Harold and the Purple Crayon, which was
good riddance to Zachary Levi's career.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. There was a wee 1-2 punch there for Zach this summer, wasn't there? So, you know, things like that. And obviously there was one of the bigger ones expected to do well was Borderlands, which I hate to say a film bombs, but when it only makes $15 million at the box office. 15, yes.
Fuck's sake.
That has been out since like the start of August, so it's not as if it's just like in the last week of the summer movie sort of schedule. So there's a lot of things going on there. One of the interesting things that I've seen is there was a 15th anniversary re-release of Coraline, and it did better than pretty much everything I've talked about here. It came in at 17th, so it was above Horizon, it was above Fly Me to the Moon, it was above Harold and the Purple Crayon, it was above Borderlands. All sorts of films that you would have thought would have done reasonably well was sort of blown away by a re-release. Now that was a big feature of summer movies as well. There were a lot of re-released films at the box office. I think partly because it was to fill in holes in the schedule. So you had like the Star Wars films all come back out.
Yeah.
You had the Lord of the Rings films come back out. You had Spider-Man films come back out. So there was an awful lot of content out there that people have seen and have bought probably in multiple formats, and yet they still turned out for that rather than going to see a Ryan Reynolds. Sorry, not Ryan Reynolds. Blanked in his name. Who's on Fly Me to the Moon?
Oh, Channing Tatum.
Yeah, so rather than going to see Channing Tatum, even though he was in the number 2 film as Gambit, oh dear, if I got some maybe a spoiler. Too late.
I think I was going to say, I think the fast. Do you know what also surprised me as well? That's not on that list. The Bike Riders, because I thought that was going to do really well. Good casts.
Yes.
Austin Butler still riding the coattails of how much everyone loved him in Elvis. Tom Hardy, obviously perennially gorgeous, and Jodie Comer, who's sort of the star of the moment in terms of sort of young British talent. And that also disappeared without a trace. I don't even know if that made the top 20.
It was number 20. Which is not a bad thing for the type of film that it was, because
it was a wordy drama.
Yes, there wasn't there's a couple of small skirmishes in it in terms of fighting and stuff like that, but yes, it was people in rooms talking, and it was based around taped interviews as well with the Jodie Comer character, and photographs. So a film is based around tapes and photographs. So yeah, no matter who's in it, it's one of these films. It didn't do what it was setting out to do in terms of the advertising for the film as well, because it was made out to be this 1960s almost James Dean like
kind of
film.
Sexy sort of,
and then when the reviews came in and it was people sitting in rooms talking about stuff a lot of the time, it didn't get reviewed in the way that it had been advertised, which is a shame, because it was, when you actually read interviews with the main people in the film, they were very straightforward about what was actually involved in making it and how the film came across. And it was a very good film. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the best films I've seen this year, but it wasn't set to be anything with regards to a major blockbuster. Now I think it's done well, considering some of the company it's in the top 20. It's one of the more serious films. In fact, it's probably
the most serious.
In terms of sort of the type of film it is. It is probably the top. Well, no, it won't be the top art house film, because there's one I will mention in a few moments' time, which is taking up that mantle. But yes, any film that you see and really enjoy, and then it doesn't come across, is always regarded as a wee bit of a personal disappointment, because you want other people to like what you like. Let's face it, it's always
absolutely. And that's when, like, even just thinking about like having been to see Conclave the other night, that's a lot of men talking in rooms, and you just think that's probably not going to do that well, but it is a really good film. It's like really, really well written, well directed. But The Bike Riders was kind of the same vibe. It was very much, there was, as you say, a couple of moments, but nothing that, there wasn't like a big action sequence or whatever. So even though, like, for example, Furiosa might be delivering a serious message, it's backed up by all this sort of bombast and violence and all the rest of it, whereas The Bike Riders really just wasn't that type of film. But I mean, impressive then that it still made the top 20, because I did think it was good.
Yeah. So of those films that I've actually mentioned, why do you think that was the case? Now, I have an answer for this, obviously based on just purely stats, but why do you think these films failed to ignite the box office in the way that obviously the people who made them hoped that they would?
Do you know, I don't know. See, when I think about The Fall Guy and Furiosa in particular, I have no idea why those films didn't do well. Actually, that's not true, because I didn't like The Fall Guy as a film. But in terms of concept and stars, I don't know why they didn't do well, unless it is just a case of, for example, I'm going to pick on The Fall Guy here because I watched it recently and I didn't particularly enjoy it. It was PR'd beautifully, great cast, was the Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling were sort of doing the whole, Alison Hammond interviews in This Morning and all this sort of thing. Ryan Gosling, fresh off his success of singing at the Oscars and all the rest of it. On paper, that should have absolutely blitzed everything else out of the park. But I do wonder if it has been a case of a few people went to see it and thought, it was okay. And it's been sort of damned by faint praise, because I didn't read any particularly effusive reviews of it after I'd watched it. It was all about, this is a bit mediocre, or this is a bit silly, or whatever. Furiosa, I don't really know what happened there, but Borderlands from the outset, I think, despite the cast, obviously you get Cate Blanchett, Jamie Lee Curtis, all that sort of thing, from the very first trailer of that, I looked at it and thought, that looks like absolute bollocks. And I think that's exactly how the whole film felt, and it just died a death immediately. Like, I've never seen so many people absolutely rip a film to shreds online as much as Borderlands. And I've obviously sat through a lot of crap, but that for some reason seems to take a real battering from all different types of critics and reviewers, video reviews, written reviews, all that sort of thing. So I feel like that's why that failed. The rest of them, I'm just not. I mean, Fly Me to the Moon, hardly any PR. Horizon, didn't know that was a thing either. And yet, Kevin Costner's obviously in that really popular TV show, Yellowstone.
Yes, yeah. Yellowstone, yeah.
Kind of thought you'd trade in a sort of Western image of that, but I don't know. I just think cinema at times is pushing a lot of stuff out unsuccessfully. And quite honestly, the ones that have done well, apart from Inside Out 2, almost feel like a fluke.
Yes, I think you're probably right. I think my thinking behind it is that there's a certain amount of desperation in there from studios. They are attaching things to IP in the hope that it will stick. And for everyone, every sort of Deadpool, Wolverine, you've got, films like The Fall Guy and If, and unfortunately Furiosa. Furiosa was a great film. It just didn't seem to hit the right note. Whether that was the fact that it was too long after the Mad Max film, which was Fury Road was like 2015, 2016. So you're talking a good long time there, and it's not one of these films that's not really talked about an awful lot in the same regard as, like, as I mentioned previously, by Inside Out 2. But yeah, there's just, if you look at all of them, pretty much the top 7 films all have existing IP. So, you're talking about Quiet Place, everything, Planet of the Apes, Bad Boys, Twisters even. Twisters is probably the most successful of this current trend of finding old IP. I mean, Twisters is, 30-odd years old?
Easily, yeah.
So the fact that did so well was down to the star power, I think, more than else. And it was a pretty decent film, and it was a spectacular summer film as well, lots of very good CG in it. And it was light in story, yes. It didn't have. It wasn't any heavier on story than the likes of The Fall Guy or Fly Me to the Moon or anything like that. But it's kind of caught the moment, the Glenn Powell moment, probably more than anything else.
And I do agree with that, but I also think where Twisters and Furiosa differ is that you probably felt like you had to go back and rewatch Mad Max in order to go and see Furiosa. You don't need to watch Twister to go and see Twisters.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. That's the way it actually goes, and that it is a bit of a shame. But it's all you've got to remember. It's a business, so they're trying to make money. They're trying to have hits here, and they're all competing against each other. And the way that it seems to have been for as long as I can probably remember is if you've got something that's a hit, then you build on that. You do something else with it, something else, and you just keep going. Or you relaunch, or in the case of like this summer, you reissue films which have zero cost to them, maybe just in terms of a bit of publicity, but there's zero cost into getting these back out into the cinemas now because a lot of them are all digital anyway. It's not as if they're having to even convert films from film. It's all there. It's money, easy money for them to make. Now, there was an interesting wee stat that I found with regards to this year compared to last year. If you take a 3-day weekend, which is obviously the busiest time at the box office. Last year, it wasn't until almost the very end of the summer movie season that the takings dropped below $100 million for the 3-day weekend, which is quite impressive. You know, obviously, it even did like a lot better, obviously, when Barbie and Oppenheimer opened. It was a significant uptake, and I think it was up maybe over 300 million over that sort of 3-day weekend. Whereas for this year, the 3-day weekend didn't go over 100 million, except for, I think, the first week of the summer movie season.
Jeez.
Until the likes of Inside Out 2 and Deadpool came out. And Deadpool was the sort of biggest opening weekend out of everything. And even then, that didn't even touch on the 300 million mark. It was well below that. So the fact that on a sort of weekly basis, less people were going to the cinema, and I think that there's an awful lot involved in that. We've kind of talked about that before, but people are being more choosy. They have less disposable income. They're being more choosy, and if the product isn't there, if it is something that is based on an IP from a TV show starring Lee Majors in the 1980s for 3 seasons, you're not really going to get a wide appeal from that.
No. And it's funny because you saying it like that, you just think that sounds like a fucking disaster. Whose idea was that? But then if you pitch it as the new Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt film, that sounds really different. I do just think, people are committed to 2, 3, 4 streaming services. That is the cost of a monthly cinema card for a lot of cinemas across the UK. So I think unless it's something like, the whole family are going to see Inside Out 2, I think a lot of people are going, do you know what, that looks okay. I'll wait till it comes to streaming. And I think that's the big issue.
Okay, so moving on to the sort of surprises, or the pleasant surprises, as we should say, rather than the surprises that kind of disappoint us. It's obviously real life, as we tend to call it.
Yeah.
As has been the case over the last couple of years, horror provides us with the big surprises. It provides us with the films that kind of did over and above what they're supposed to be doing here. So you've got the likes of Alien Romulus, which obviously, based on a previous IP. It didn't come out until the middle of August, so therefore it's not had its sort of full run in cinemas yet. When you take it just over the summer months, it's $91 million, but it's done 105, which would take it up into the top 10. Actually, so existing IP, but they're doing something, as we've talked about in a previous pod, they're doing something slightly different with it as well. It's not just the same Ripley, well, it's a kind of Ripley-esque story, but it's not quite the same. They're doing it at a slightly different angle. And we have Longlegs as well, which is probably the film in the sort of top 15, say,
Mhm.
that is the most original of the films there. It's not based on really anything. It was an original idea for the screen, and it's a very, very low budget horror film. Now, do you think this is a good thing, the fact that these films are doing so well?
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at summer horrors, you've also got like so The First Omen and Late Night with the Devil, which we have podded on as well, which I just think is actually really exciting because I read this morning that Terrifier 3 is top of the box office for this weekend. So there is an appetite there for, not personally, because I don't like clowns, but there's an appetite there for a good indie horror because, okay, The First Omen does have existing IP, but Late Night with the Devil certainly doesn't. Longlegs certainly doesn't. People are looking for this sort of thing. They want that kind of, I don't want to say low budget feeling because that's not fair. None of these films feel like low budget, but do you know what I mean? They want that kind of feeling like they've got onto a sleeper hit before their friends. And oh, have you seen this horror? It's great. I went to see it in the cinema. But I think people are looking for that. So I do genuinely think it's exciting that we are seeing a wee resurgence of these types of films, and they're not being confined to the sort of latter half of the year, which obviously Halloween onwards is typically when these films sort of come out. So I am all for the summer horror doing well, and actually feeling like you are in a way sort of supporting smaller films by going to see, you know, a David Dismulsion film that nobody's really heard of because it was only on one wee tiny screen on a Tuesday morning or something like that. I do kind of, for me personally, I like the feeling of seeing something that nobody else has, and I feel like that's kind of where this is getting from.
There is an audience for horror films. You've got the likes of Shudder, which is basically a horror streaming channel, and horror films are always big. Now, I have a wee theory about why they are so popular in the summer. I think that films tended to come out in the sort of autumn in the run up to Halloween. And obviously the movie studios tried to capitalize on that by bringing out certain films around about that time. And so the schedule was pretty crowded then around about Halloween. And obviously the box office is usually slightly lower because everybody else is, it's not like summer kids aren't at school and things like that, so they've got more time. They're going to see things during the day and all that sort of stuff. But with horror films, there's a sort of slightly lower expectation, I would say, for how they're going to perform. And then when the studios realize that they can make an awful lot of money out of horror films, especially horror franchises, they pump out the same films that are going to do really well, and they take up the majority of the market share at Halloween. So you're talking about the Saw films would come out, the Paranormal Activity films would come out, and it would be the same time every year. So any other sort of smaller budgeted horror films had less of a chance going up against these films. So all the horror money was getting hoovered up with these. So they move it as counter-programming into the sort of summer months. And these films, traditionally, horror films are the sort of starting point for filmmakers. They go in, they prove what they can do in terms of running a film, making it work on a lower budget, and bringing something to screen that will make a profit. So the expectations within the sort of summer season are slightly lower because they probably make money. People go in on spec on it, but they're doing really well because they're really good films, and they're out with the autumn Halloween, and you've got this built-in audience who go to horror festivals. There's loads of horror film festivals. They subscribe to the likes of Shudder, and they're on the lookout for horror films all the time. That's what they watch the majority of. So when this stuff is coming out there, and they've probably seen the Deadpool film, so as a secondary film, they'll go and see Longlegs. So that's been getting really good publicity. Nicolas Cage has been a bit mad on it. Let's go and see that. And going to see that and thinking, what the fuck have I just seen? This is brilliant. So I think that's why these films do particularly well. And every year now, we're seeing more and more horror films coming through in that way. They're coming through earlier now. I know previously we have decried that a little when the likes of Cobweb came out. It came out in the summer and didn't do as well as we thought it was going to do because we said, well, it's more of a Halloween film here. But it's kind of swings and roundabouts sometimes, isn't it? Just whether things work.
It is on Netflix now, though, so it might get a wee pick up for people looking for scary films to watch during this particular season. Personally speaking, as a shite bag, I like going to see horror films in summer because I come out and it's still daylight, so I don't feel like I have to go and deal with the scary monsters straight away.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, so because did Maxine come out during the summer as well? You've got Peril and Ecstasy.
Yes.
That's all part of a franchise as well. People will go and see that because they've committed to the previous two. You obviously did have some horrors that didn't do so well. I think was it The Watchers and Trap? Did that come out in the...
Trap is a weird one, yeah. We'll talk about Trap at the moment, but in a couple of minutes. But yeah, go on. What you were saying? Yeah.
No, I just think that there is kind of still a sort of tier system even within horror. So you're going to get your word of, and I feel like horror in particular as a genre still does really well off word of mouth. So that's why you do have Long Legs and your Late Night with the Devil doing really well, because you have these sort of inbuilt communities that are going to go and tell each other, go and see this, it's mad, or go and see this, it's really going to freak you out. Whereas the kind of bigger ones, like The Watchers is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, and Trap is obviously M. Night Shyamalan himself. These feel sort of bigger budget, and they maybe didn't do as well because it's the indie horror crowd that are sort of feeling these other ones. I feel like they were almost like too big budget, if that makes sense.
Yes. I know what you mean. There was things like The Strangers, which is the sort of revitalization of the sort of Strangers films from about a decade ago and things like that. And The Watchers, for all the publicity that it got, there was interviews, right? Because I listen to quite a number of podcasts, other than our own, I am narcissistic. And M. Night and his daughter were both on a number of podcasts promoting her film, because he's a producer in the film as well. So there was that. And even then, you would think it didn't do particularly well. But if her film is made in any way similar to the way that M. Night Shyamalan makes his films, then it will be regarded as a success, and she will have a career on the back of us, because the way that M. Night works is that he puts films together very cheaply. He sells the rights to streaming services, like overseas rights and all that. So even before a single shot has been sort of put down for the film has made its money. The film has broken even, which is always the target for a film. So it has. And the way that he makes films, he makes them very economically. He doesn't mess about. He doesn't have like long shoot times and all this, because for like a number of years he was making his films independently and then selling them. So the likes of Glass and all that were made just with him, and he sold those to a company who would then, like one of the big studios, who would then actually push the film out there. So he's able to make money before the film is actually out there. And then, like I say, his productions are quick. He doesn't mess about, and he's got a very good eye about how these films look. So therefore they look more expensive than they actually are. And the likes of Trap, that's a perfect example of that. That was filmed really quickly. He used the same team that he always uses, so therefore there's not like a learning curve for anybody. They know exactly what he's doing. He's very meticulous in what he does. So therefore he makes money, and that's how, on the face of it, it looks like it wasn't like a massively successful film, but all the back end stuff is already taken care of. There's not bills to pay. So that 40 million that film made is pure profit for that film.
Wow, I had no idea about any of that. So it is one of those. It's a funny one then, because it looks like it's not really made anything, but actually everything is all sort of, as you say, paid off. There's nothing. Wow.
Because if you think about it, like a filmmaker of his sort of name, to have the career that he has to be doing something special if his films are seemingly underperforming. Now, a lot of executives just look at the top line, but then when it's explained to them, well, this is the actual deal here, this is what happens, this is how much it's going to cost for everything, you're not going to, you're guaranteed not to lose money on this film. Whereas, can you say that about a film like The Fall Guy? No, you cannot. So there's so many films that it is a risk for them. That's why they promote it so heavily. It's not going to be a guaranteed hit. But with him, with Shyamalan, there's a built-in audience for his stuff. It might not be a massive audience, but they will make a profit. They will make it, and then you've got onto streaming, and it'll get the benefit of the fact that in 18 months or 2 years' time, there's another film coming down, and as part of the promotion for that film, he will talk about his previous one and say, "Oh yeah, well, as soon as we finish that, we're on this." So it's getting name recognition all the time. It's very clever the way he does it. So if his daughter is doing anything even remotely similar to him, which I imagine she'd be looking at that.
Yeah.
You know, he'd be saying, you can have a really good career here. You've obviously got an eye, you know what you're doing in terms of the films itself. I can help you, but here's a model you can follow, and you can be very successful. You can get to basically do any film that you want within reason. Obviously, you're not talking about hardcore animal porn here or anything like that, you know. Completely different summer market.
Yes.
But
very different type of cinema, I imagine, as well.
Yeah. So you would regard that as being a bit of a failure, but it's not really in the
That's
same
interesting.
way
I didn't know that. Yeah.
In the same way that you might regard Bike Riders being, you know, a disappointment. So speaking of disappointments, there were a number of them over the summer movies. There was one of the biggest ones for me was The Crow, given the fact that that film has a built-in cult audience that never seems to shut up about it. There's always somebody banging on about how great The Crow was and what a tragedy. Obviously, if it was a tragedy, the guy get killed on set, you know. But there's all this sort of myth
lore,
around it. Oh, when's the remake getting done? You know, and there's obviously there could be a film made about the making of the Crow. Like the new one, the problems that they've had over the years, because there's been sort of remakes and sequels and stuff, and they've all been promised. I know there was films that followed on from The Crow and to very little success, but there's always been talk of, you know, when's it going to get remade? You know, it's you know, existing IP. It's obviously based on comics and everything else. So the fact that that did so badly was quite interesting. According to Box Office Mojo, it was, let me see, number 37 in the charts. It was released fairly late on in August, but even then, to date, it's only made about another £700 million on top of the 8.6 million that it made when it actually came out. Sorry, 8.5. So that's been a major disappointment. Now, that was publicised quite heavily and everything, and you would think maybe that would fall into the sort of horror thing as well, but it just didn't seem to do the business whatsoever, which is...
It's really weird, because I feel like there's so many people want a Crow remake, and I'm not convinced that all of these people go to see the Crow remake. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much chatting about it, so I feel like it could never live up to expectations. I mean, it seemingly had quite a good cast. Like, Bill Skarsgård obviously is usually very good in everything that he does. I feel like there's too much around it that it's never going to be a success in and of itself, because some people think it's, you know, distasteful to remake a film where somebody died on the set. Some people really want it. But I don't think that the people that spend so much time talking about it are actually people that are putting their hand in their pocket and paying for tickets. It's a really weird one for me, and having never seen the original, there was really nothing sort of compelling me to go and see this one. But I don't know, I just feel like it's one of those films where there's almost too much discussion around it, and actually, so it's never going to live up to whatever it is this fan base want.
Yeah, I don't understand why it did so badly. It just reinforces the fact that, or the point that there's a reason why people aren't making these type of films, even though there seems to be a public clamour for it. And I think that's something that reflects on sort of all aspects of sort of life. People want things, and then when they're actually presented with it, say, yeah, but not that. I don't want that.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
Yeah, I want freedom. There you go. Oh, no, I didn't want that freedom. I wanted this one. So, to kind of emphasize some points that we have previously discussed about films in terms of actors turning into directors and the struggles that they have with trying to raise finance for film, trying to raise interest in film, and the subsequent release of movies, let's talk about The Dead Don't Hurt. The Dead Don't Hurt was 94 in the box office for the summer. In terms of the US, it took a total of $750,000 And it was
Oh.
beaten by so many other films you would not believe. Quite a lot of films that were actually released months
Yeah.
and months before
Oh
it.
dear.
Now, we've talked before in terms of this, like, why is an actor who was in a film or a series of films that were re-released this summer and did far better
Yeah.
than
Well, I
something
was going to
that is...
say he probably made more money than his own
Yeah,
film.
he probably made more money from residuals, yeah. We've kind of struggled with the fact that these guys are obviously very, very talented. They're putting something out on screen. They are being forced to take a role in the film for name recognition as well, and do all the publicity for it. He publicised that all over the place. There was all sorts of interviews about it, and yet 94 in the box office for the summer. What has gone wrong here?
Do you know, it's funny because when you think about that and you think about Horizon, the Kevin Costner film, I just wondered if cinema has kind of fallen out of love with those kind of traditional style West, because The Dead Don't Hurt is very, very much a love letter to the traditional Western. You know, you've got the classics or sweeping landscapes, the bad guy head to toe in black with the spurs clinking. You've got the strong female character, and your sort of taciturn hero. So it literally ticks every single box in terms of the classic, you know, 1930s, 1940s Western. And I just wonder if people have fallen out of love with that style of cinema, which is a shame because I do kind of suspect it's the type of film where people will go and see it and go, oh, nothing really happened. But actually, it's one of these really like indulgent sort of storytelling, like really letting you soak up the landscape type of films. I, obviously, biased, loved it. And I'm appalled that it's 94 because especially when you hear him talking so passionately about what it takes to get a project off the ground, how much time and effort he put into it, and how much he really, really loved working on that project. It just seems like, I'm sorry, if Harold and the Purple Crayon is sitting at fucking 17 or whatever it is, and The Dead Don't Hurt is at 94, I want off this planet because that's disgusting.
One of the reasons why apparently it didn't do well is the fact that it was only on 700 odd screens, whereas your big releases, it's up there on 4,500 screens.
Yeah, and they're on all day, so that'll probably have one screening in a day, whereas Despicable Me will have 25 screenings in a day or whatever it is.
Yeah, so that's just a total number of theatres. I don't think it takes into consideration the fact that Deadpool will be on 10 screens at any one time, or now only on one or two. But even then, the fact that it was on 700 screens, it's still very much underperformed because you had films like, I saw the TV Glow, which was maybe on double the number of screens, but did so much better, did like 5-6 times better in terms of business. But that'll fit into the nice wee horror discussion as well, more than anything else, because that's a wee sort of oddball horror film, which was pretty good. Quite enjoyed that. But yes, it was disappointing considering the amount of effort that these people put into just getting the stuff off the ground and, promoting it. They're spending months of their life answering questions about this film for such a small return. Now, maybe that will find a home on streaming, but I very much doubt it. I think it'll appeal to, it'll go into Mubi or BFI channel or something. It won't even probably do great business. It might be on Netflix or Prime, but I don't think even then it won't be on their top line. Every time you log in, your algorithm puts you towards one. I don't even think it will get that sort of business as well, which is a real shame. It really is, because it's a pretty decent film. I thought it was good, and obviously you thought it was very good because you kind of championed it based on its run at the various festivals and things like that, and then its actual cinema release as well, which it's not great. So
no, it's just a shame. As I say, it's funny how but in my head I am definitely thinking that he probably made more off those Lord of the Rings reruns. But do you know what though? It's probably something that he's more content doing. Actually, he comes across as somebody. Not I'm saying he's wanting to distance himself from Lord of the Rings, but he comes across somebody who's just sort of quietly engaged in his own work, and actually you'll probably get pleasure out of doing that. Obviously, it'd be nice if it made some money. But that's kind of sad. 94.
Yeah, it really is, because these guys spend an awful lot of time doing it, and like I say, they're trying to do something a wee bit different because they're trying to create their own type of content as well. So obviously we have basically beaten the summer movies season to death with a big stick here. The bloody pot is still lying there and pulsing away to a certain extent with film. I'm really pushing this analogy quite heavy.
No,
here,
I love it.
you know.
I love it.
So we aren't officially at the end of the sort of summer movies at this point, which the point of this discussion, we are now in October. So we have a couple of months left in the year, and there are still a couple of big films to come out over the next couple of months. So Mary, what are you looking forward to in terms of films between now and the end of the year?
So glad you asked. Nosferatu is the big one for me. No surprises there. I am a huge fan of the original. I actually love a vampire film, and I have complete faith in Eggers and in Bill Skarsgård. That's why I'm surprised the Crow didn't do very well. So very much looking forward to that. And there's a couple of kind of smaller films. So The Outrun, really looking forward to as well, with Saoirse Ronan, and Heretic. I've seen a trailer for this a couple of times. It's an A24 film. Hugh Grant, he appears to trap two Mormon missionaries in his house, and they basically have to go through what looks like a bloody torture chamber in order to escape. And I watched an interview with him and Graham Norton last week, and he was fantastic. He was really, really good. So I'm very much looking forward to see how that goes. And Gladiator 2, I'm on the fence about. Not sure we need it, but it is Pedro Pascal in leathers. So I might be swayed. But apart from that, I think Anora, when it comes out, should hopefully do well. And I'm quite looking forward to, is it Emma? No, it's not Emma Stone. I've completely forgotten her name. The girl from Pitch Perfect, Anna Kendrick. So she is directing Woman of the Hour, which is the true story about the woman who went on the sort of American equivalent of Blind Date and ended up getting paired with a serial killer.
Yes, that's coming out on Netflix, I believe.
Yeah. So I will pay attention to that. That looks quite interesting.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I think Nosferatu is probably the biggie. Obviously, we've just had the Joker film as well.
Oh dear.
Venom, Last Dance is coming out.
Oh, do you know, I love these films. I know that they're terrible, and somebody tells me they're terrible, and my husband tells me they're terrible, and for some reason I have so much love for the Venom films.
No, I quite like them. I've got nothing against them at all. I think they're fairly decent. And speaking of films that are probably going to be terrible but might actually be decent, I am actually looking forward to seeing Kraven the Hunter. I really fancy
knew you were going to say that.
I don't know if I'm just a glutton for punishment with these things, but you know. I discovered, enjoy it.
What I discovered last week was the writer from Dracula 2000 is the writer for Kraven the Hunter. So good luck and Godspeed.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of what you want, isn't it?
Yeah,
and one that we've not mentioned is Red One, the much delayed Dwayne Johnson film.
Is that coming out?
It is. It's coming out. I think it is coming out in November, and that's one that was supposed to be out last year, and for lots of different reasons, it got pushed back. And it's very much a Christmas film as well. I think Dwayne Johnson's like one of the elves in it, or some one of Santa's helpers or something. So that could potentially be a complete train wreck of a film, or it could be something that really does hit things quite nicely. I see Conclave is due out on the 22nd of November as well, so that would be one to look forward to based on what you've said. I am intrigued by that film based on what you've said, so that should be very, very good indeed. Apart from that, you've pretty much covered the rest of it. Moana 2, with the original cast in it, quite possibly. And one that is just out this weekend, Salem's Lot as well, which is...
Oh, yes.
It's decent. It's quite close to the original film, or the original TV. In fact, it's never been filmed as a film. There's been 2 TV versions, one with David Soul in the 70s and one with Rob Lowe in the 80s.
Oh, right.
But this film follows the original story quite closely, and it's actually a fairly decent film. It's got a few wee jump scares, and it's more creepy than anything else. because it's obviously kids that are turning into vampires as well, which is always a wee bit weird. But and the scratching at the window and all this sort of stuff, they do all that very, very well, and that's quite effective. The story itself is okay. It's Stephen King's involved in it. He's an executive producer, so it's not going to stray too far away from his original story, I wouldn't say. And obviously he must back it because he hasn't come out and said that he hates it or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one that's probably worth watching that's out right now. And I had actually forgotten that was coming out as well. So yes. So there's still plenty to watch between and the end of the year.
Definitely. I mean, we've not even mentioned, so Paddington in Peru is coming out as well.
Of course, yeah.
And which I will definitely be going to see. And of course, Wicked. Now, I am really on the fence with Wicked because I love the stage musical.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is one of these films that's either going to break all box office records or it is going to tank, and then they're going to panic about bringing out part 2.
It's really weird because they're doing the usual promotion of a musical film in that they're trying to promote it as if it's not a musical. Yeah. So there's no singing in the trailer or anything.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's really, I don't understand that with films that heavily rely on music. And especially with something like that, everybody knows it's been such a smash that why are you not promoting it in that way?
Especially when one of your leads is like an international pop star. It's not like, a straight role for them. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like Joker in a way. It's like, one of your leads is one of the biggest stars in music. Why are you kidding on that this just has some incidental songs in it as opposed to, a full-on musical? I think it's, as I say, I'm on the fence because this is just the first act of the play, and yet it's still 2.5 hours long, so I'm not sure. But they're trying to do a sort of like, I think it's called Glicked, because Gladiator 2 and Wicked are apparently coming out at the same weekend.
So sorry for swearing, but no, I don't think. I could well be proven wrong, but I don't think that will be a film somehow.
No, I don't think that's going to be.
Neither of them have the Barbie appeal.
Yeah, but the thing is, and this is what annoys me in a way, like Barbenheimer was a sort of fluke thing that just kind of happened quite organically. Like not everything has to be a, we'll pair these two completely different films together and see how they get on. Like, you're not going to be able to convince somebody who certainly I'm a wee bit more convinced of this. You're not going to be able to drag somebody from Gladiator 2 straight into part 1 of Wicked.
Yeah, and especially calling it Glicked, that sounds like it's some sort of diarrhea remedy or something like that. It doesn't sound appealing at all.
No, it definitely doesn't. Barbenheimer sounded cool, whereas you're right, it's like you would go to the chemist and like whisper behind the counter, like, do you have any Glicked?
Yeah. And can you hurry?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's still loads and loads out. It'll just be interesting, I think, because I have certain expectations of what I want to see, and you're obviously the same. It'll just be interesting to see if what we like translates into what does well at the box office.
Yeah, I think there's a fair crossover between what we like and what actually hits big. But yeah, we do talk about some stuff that doesn't really get seen very often or in sort of lots of screens, which again is bad. It really is. You want people to see as much as they possibly can, but you can't force them to do it. And a lot of the times it's just not possible, which is, it's a real shame though. It really is, because there's an awful lot of good stuff out there, which sometimes, as we have mentioned before, you'll never get to see. You'll never get the chance to see something that you've seen on a festival screening or whatever. And it turns out that it doesn't even hit Netflix or Amazon or something. If you're lucky, it'll hit one of the smaller streaming services that the majority of people don't subscribe to.
Well, interestingly, Blitz and Conclave, all of the posters for them, and of course before the film came on, Apple TV is all over it. So they're obviously, the intention is that they'll do limited cinema release and then move them onto the platform. Nice. But I think we'll see more and more films like that, though, where the structure or the structure of their release is we'll do X amount in the cinema and then we've got an exclusive deal with Apple, Amazon, Netflix, whatever it is. Because I think that seems to be a viable model for these films.
Yeah, there seems to be a number of them doing it that way, which works, especially with more sort of prestige films. It's all Oscar baity stuff as well, isn't it? As well. Yeah. So yeah, it's if it gets that stuff out there and it gets it, into sort of public domain, then that's great. That's good. Even though you're obviously having to pay for another streaming service in order to watch some of these things. But,
yeah.
That's just the way of it. I'm quite happy paying for Apple anyway. I think their streaming service is great. Just
I just got a new phone actually, and they're offering 6 months free, so I think I might take them up on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you'll be able to watch pretty much everything within the 6 months that you could possibly imagine. There was also a wee bit in news about how Apple have now signed up to have their streaming service available via Amazon Prime. So via Prime, how you like the add-on channels in Prime Video. So Apple TV is going to be one of those in the near future.
Interesting.
Which is, yes, because obviously they were very much promoting Apple TV Plus as part of their own wee ecosystem. So it's based on their phone. It was something that if you wanted Apple TV, then you got it with the device. And like say, if you buy a phone, you get it free with that. But it's an app. It's separate from everything else. Now the app is available everywhere, obviously, so it does kind of work. But the fact that Prime are doing this sort of thing, that trying to pull in as many different streaming add-ons as possible. And it works. Obviously, it must work to quite a great extent, but it's quite annoying as well because then it's all through your Amazon account. You can't watch any of these services just separately through the app because it has to be through the Amazon app.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. Well, it's obviously it's making money for both of them. Probably because they're not in direct competition with each other. I don't think in terms of the way Amazon has their thing. They make stuff. But they also buy in a hell of a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah.
That they show in their services. So there won't be the same competition because of the way that Apple, so a lot of their own stuff, it's prestige. It's not really, yes, the dramas and stuff will be in competition with other streamers, but not to the extent that, it's going to interfere with people either getting Amazon or getting Apple. So they put it this way, they're not going to stop buying iPhones because it's on Prime. You may not be able to actually watch the stuff on Prime though. If you get it free, you may still have that model. But it'll be interesting to see what Apple then do from that. Are they changing their business model? This may be the first stage of it, but we shall see. It's all up in the air at the moment. So is there anything else? Anything you think I've forgotten, which isn't an unusual occurrence? Do you think there's anything else to be sort of said on this pod?
No, I feel like the big sort of like Joker, Substance, Megalopolis, they all just missed that little deadline.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's really everything. It would be interesting actually to come back sort of maybe end of December, beginning of January and talk about the last few months of the year because you do have quite big prestige titles in there and see how they performed. But yeah, it's been a funny one this summer. It's not. I don't think cinema is as predictable as it used to be. And I think if you work in the accounts department or whatever it is of a production company, that is becoming a bigger problem.
Yep. Yeah, costs are increasing across the board, really. And it really, the thing that really surprises me still, especially about summer movies, is the fact that they're spending almost as much on advertising and promotion as they are making a film. Now, why is that in this day and age when they're saying social media is king? What's that all about? Why is there so much money spent on advertising? It doesn't seem to make sense to me. And if they do spend so much money on advertising, then why are film studios not buying up advertising companies and doing that in-house?
That would make sense.
Yeah, because they would save money then. I don't understand why they don't do that. I know they used to have their publicity departments and everything, and film studios, when it was more the sort of studio system, they owned the product from start to end. They owned the stars, everything. They owned a lot of the time they owned the theatres, so they would get the money from start to finish. And that obviously that was all broken up and everything, and then the star system disappeared and all that. But you would think that these companies would be seriously looking at their advertising budgets and going, for the advertising that we spend in maybe 4-5 big blockbusters, that's like the best part of $2 billion. Yeah. We could be buying companies or buying a huge stake in a company for that sort of money. So why they're not doing it, maybe big advertising is stopping them. Maybe the big wigs in the advertising world. But you would think that no company's sort of immune to a takeover of that sort of magnitude.
No, and I just think that, like, although you obviously there's like paid, like promoted, like posts on social media and stuff like that, you're not paying $2 billion worth of, paid and promoted posts. So it does seem a strange. And I know that some production companies have tried to engage with sort of certain critics and like, send them a nice like PR pack and like, will you review this film and all that sort of thing, with the expectation obviously that the review will come back favourably. But I do just feel like there's whole areas of the market that they're not tapping into. And quite honestly, a TV slot or a billboard poster or whatever is not cutting it anymore. It's not how people are finding out about films. They need to kind of embed, like we've said about like sort of the indie horror community, they need to be embedding themselves in these communities, and they're just, for whatever reason, not doing that.
I know. I don't get it. And I think at some point where you find that it costs even more to promote a film than it costs to actually make it, then you've kind of got your model's broken at that point, seriously. So, they need to do something. They need to do something before they actually get to that stage, which they won't. But, it's... bring me in. I'm available for consultation.
I was going to say, we should just fly out to Hollywood next week and have a chat with them and tell them what they're doing wrong and how we've got all these ideas to fix it.
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll take our ideas, they'll get us to sign a non-disclosure agreement and probably threaten us rather than pay us. So
yeah,
and they could pay for our airfare home.
Oh well, at least we tried. But I do think that it'll be interesting to see how the end of the year sort of wraps up, because obviously towards the end of the year you start getting your previews for what your big summer films are going to be next year, and so the cycle goes on and on. But I'm intrigued to see how these allegedly really big sort of either legacy sequels or remakes or whatever perform.
Yeah, I think what we'll do then at some point in December, maybe even the start of January, we will have a review of the last quarter and tie that in with the awards season, because obviously the promotion for awards has started already. You've had the Toronto International Film Festival, and now London as well. So a lot of films that will be in contention and in the press for awards are coming out, as well as obviously some of the summer ones as well. The campaign for Nick Cage to get an Oscar for supporting actor in Longlegs starts here. So it'll be interesting to look back on that, which we will do. So obviously listen out for that, listener. We can't be bothered coming round to your house and telling you that we're just about to drop another podcast. So we're telling you here now.
We'll send you a fax.
With that, we've come to the end of our discussion for today on Summer Movies 2024. You can get us on all the normal social media channels at Moviescramble. If you want to send us an email, it's podcast@moviescramble.co.uk. I have managed to get into the admin functionality of our provider, and I've set a number of conditions now on what actually gets through in terms of emails, and the number of emails for Dorillo pillows and knives and all sorts of things about helping a man enhance his performance have now been dropped. They don't actually reach my inbox anymore, so that's quite good. And I've been quite specific about what subject matters are getting dropped. So if anybody does actually send us an email and it's got anything to do with movies or how great we are, then it will still come through. So please, we encourage you to send us emails. Let us know what you think about the podcast. If there's anything that we can discuss, anything you'd like us to have a go at. If you're going to tell us to shut up, then we'll accept those emails as well, because quite frankly, we're desperate for emails, so that'll be fine as well. Again, like I said, you can get us everywhere that we normally put stuff out there. And if you do like the podcast, please, on the podcast app that you use, subscribe, hit a like, maybe give us a wee review as well. Just let us know that there are actually people out there other than what we get through from stats. It helps us in a number of ways. It It boosts our egos for a start, you know, it gives a wee spring in our step. It means there's one less day of the week when I'm wandering about just wearing pajamas. So, you know, let's do what we can, people, to make us, me and Mary, feel good about ourselves.
Definitely. I'm happy with a five rating, like I said about IMDb. I'll give those films a chance. So
Nice one. So with that, it is cheerio from myself. Bye.
bye.